All right. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 31 of CHAS and Friends. I am joined by the ever amazing J.R. Carroll. If you have not checked out his channel, I've got all the links down below. Check out his books as well. And we're going to be talking about his books as well as, just general nerdy stuff and booktube and all that fun stuff like we
Absolutely.
normally do. But I'll give JR a couple of minutes here to take it away on his end, and then we shall begin.
Yeah. If you don't know me, I am J.R. Carroll. I am an author, uh, booktuber, friend of Chaz here. We've been going back and forth from Dresden to just any little thing that we can think to get on video chat about. But yeah, I was an author before I was a booktuber. I did. Uh, I think I had reviews with Philip Chase and then Steve from Steve Talks Books. And then I don't know. I think Steve kind of said, "Yeah, won't you throw some stuff up there?" And I was like, "Well, I don't even know how because I am so like tech wise. I am the angel of death when it comes to technology. Like my best friend, he's like." Head of government when it comes to messing with computers. And I'm always like, hey, broke a computer again. Like, call me up. Uh, but I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos and they're like, yeah, just use your phone and this and that. And that's how I kind of started that off. And then it was, you when you first get into booktube, you got your Daniel Greens, your Elliot Brooks, your Murphy Napiers, and then you start like okay, they're your gateway drug, right? And then you kind of start niching down and finding your people, and
Right.
then that's when I found Chaz, Philip, Mike, you know, all the people that the usual suspects if you're familiar with this corner of booktube. But yeah, it was it's been a fun journey. It's challenging sometimes, but balancing the being an author and then being a booktuber can be hard sometimes. When you want to ramp up the writing, you got to come down on the videos, and then you're, at least me, I'm like, no, not my numbers. Like, but it's fun, man. I love staying busy. And this is my favorite thing. I love chatting with people.
Yeah, same. That's my favorite thing about it too. Love getting into the conversations, and you've been on YouTube almost 2 years now, right?
2.5, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, my bad. So over two. Wow, yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
coming up on 5 years in August.
Yeah. You're becoming one of the OGs. Yeah. There's,
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of people recently. I'd say over the last year that were kind
Mhm.
of in your class. The class of like a year or 2 years before me. That a lot of them are just starting to fade away and stuff. I'm just like, no, such good people. I know
I
a lot of
know.
people. A lot of people were making that video. Mike made that video. I think Patrick made it. Like Library of a Viking. Even they're like, oh, people are leaving BookTube, and everyone's got their reasons and stuff. But it can be hard. It can be hard to like come up with new fresh ideas, and then depending on where you're at in the hierarchy, you can get discouraged because you're not getting what you think you should get.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's just it's all about that algorithm, man, and some people just hardly ever hit it. Some people hit it once in a while, and then some people just like hit it big. And
Yeah, and
I
just
think
keep
Matt over at Match Fantasy Books said that he had one video that went viral, and that's what took his channel off. And
yeah, he's the master of the top tens over there on like every it seems like every couple of days I'm like, man, I was like, I gotta start looking at more of his video. Like, how are you coming up with so many top tens?
right,
You know,
that's
but
what
like
I'm
he
thinking.
but he found his niche.
He did. Jenny, hi, good to see you. That's okay. I'm just glad you're here.
Yes. Hey, what's better than watching BookTube?
Right, exactly. Yeah. That, for those of us that have jobs where we can actually do that, it's nice. We just sit back. Because my watch later list is constantly full. You know, I've usually got at least 25 videos on there that I need to watch, and probably more than that. So
Oh yeah, like yeah, most of my booktube and and like I do a lot of audiobooks and it's almost solely at work. Like when I get
yeah,
home, it's mostly family time or doing like lives or making a video. But outside of that, it's I'll watch all your videos and stuff while I'm at, while I'm at work,
yeah,
delivering the mail.
same, absolutely. You guys are watching now, obsessed with Dresden. That's awesome.
That's
I love
right.
it.
That's right. The
It's a
more
it's
the
a
more converts we can get, the better.
right. It's definitely an obsession, man. I'm so looking forward to the next book. I think it's 12
12
12
months.
hours. What's it? 12
12
months.
months.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because this is going to be because normally with Dresden, it's set up where it's like 2 weeks, a week or 2 weeks. This
Yeah.
it's going to be a year-long book. I'm like, this is going to be so interesting to see how Jim Butcher handles writing a book through an entire year.
Yeah.
And like,
And especially I'm wondering if it's going to be a longer book too. Like most of his books are 400, 500 ish.
yeah,
And I'm wondering if this is going to be a chunker, or if he's going to have to break it up, or if he's just going to do a whole year in like
yeah.
vignettes.
Well, I think well, last time I looked, he was at like 58%
Yeah.
done with the book. But his first Stormfront is funny. I think Stormfront actually has less words than my first book did, but then his just gradually just kept getting higher and higher. I think Cold Days was the longest book. If you don't consider Peace Talks and Battlegrounds one book, if you
Yeah.
if you're considering them two books, then like Cold Days was like 190,000 words, which is a big book in any
Yeah.
sense, but like compared to some of these epic fantasies, we're like, 190. That's a small book, and that's not even the first book of A Song of Ice and Fire. I mean, all
Right.
those books are over 200.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's pretty wild. And the thing I love about Dresden is, they may be like fantasy books, but they're really great for like breaking out of reading slumps and everything. I
Mhm.
mean, you can easily read a Dresden book like that, and especially doing the audiobooks with
Oh
James
yeah,
Barker. That's an easy read or reread. So yeah,
yeah. The
it's a great
pacing,
palate cleanser.
yeah, the pacing is so good for
Mhm.
Dresden. It's like, yeah, you can devour a Dresden book, and like I was talking with some people about reading slumps, and it seems I don't know if it's a summertime blues or something, but a lot of people seem to be having reading slumps right now. And
Yeah,
I'm like, well, what do you normally read? I mean, if you're normally, a sci-fi person, yeah, maybe read a Dresden Files book, read an urban fantasy, and if
yeah,
you're epic fantasy, maybe read a hardcore science fiction book, And what I would also tell people is like read a small book. If you're in a reading slump, pick a book that's not in your normal genre and a small one so you can feel like you accomplished it. It's like, okay,
right.
350-page book, let's knock it out in 2 days. And then it's like, okay, well, and then you can kind of, because that's what happened to me after, like right when I first got on BookTube, I read the Dark Tower, the final book in the Dark Tower series, which is like
Oh,
900 pages,
right.
and then I read the first three Malazan books back to back to back.
Yeah.
That was not a good idea.
No.
I was so burnt out, like because I did those four books in like a month, and I was like so burnt out. And then I thought to myself, maybe that's why I was kind of down on Malazan. So I read them again, like 6 months later, and it still wasn't for me. But
Yeah.
yeah, reading three or four 900 plus page books in a row is not a good idea for any.
Definitely not. Yeah, I almost DNF'd Dead House Gates, and then I got halfway through Memories of Ice, and I just stopped. I couldn't go any further. I do plan to go back and reread it at some point, reread Memories of Ice, but I was so burned out from Dead House Gates that I'm like, I can't take anymore.
Yeah. Dude, like, yeah, like I said, I've read the Memories of Ice twice, and on the second read, it was better, I
Yeah,
guess, but it's still what like there's just too much going on. There's like I'm more like and it's funny to me, and no shade to anybody who Malzahn's your favorite book because there's a lot of people who that's their favorite, but when they say, "Oh, the character work is so good," I'm like, I think that's the least of everything that's going on in Malazan. Like the world is terrific. The history is really cool. His prose amazing. The characters, I'm just like, like everyone hates Krumpa. He was the only thing that kept me going. Like all right, when's Krumpa coming in next? Like I
yeah,
liked any of it's funny. I liked all the goofy characters
yeah,
in Malzahn the best. Like there was it's been so long, but there was like an animated doll or an animated like Pinocchio like figure,
yeah. Uh-huh.
and his soul got put into the doll or something. He was
Yeah.
an awesome character. That was I mean he that I forget what happened to him, but that was great. Like I liked any of his maniacal, like supposed to be kind of weird characters, And anytime Krumpa came on, I'm like, okay, all right, we can go for a little bit longer. It's gonna be fun now. Like I
Right.
don't know. I just want my books to be fun.
Yeah, I want my books to be fun too. And I do have to say my favorite character still by far is Animander Rake. That dude is dark and mysterious. And there's some
Yeah,
other of the I guess they call them ascendants that are pretty dark and mysterious as well. The action was pretty good in the action scenes, but yeah,
yeah,
if I ever make it through Malazan, it's gonna be a chore, I think.
yeah.
So we'll see if I even attempt it.
Oh, I didn't even I didn't even catch your name over there. I love it
Oh
more than a
yeah,
child. That's
yeah. Well, an homage to you, my man.
right.
Um, as both of you are authors, can I ask you? Can I ask, do you prefer playing in your own worlds or reading other people's worlds?
That's a
Oh,
that is a good question.
that is.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There are days where it's like especially now, like I'm getting close to the end of my fifth book, and yeah, there are certain times where it feels like a chore to write it. You're like, okay, I need to, like, especially if you're not in a heavy, like, big things are happening section of your book where you're writing, you're just kind of writing let's get the person to the next stage type thing. You're like, okay, okay, maybe then I'll prefer to be, in somebody else's world. But like if I'm in the thick of things, oh, I'm loving it. I'm just like, oh, putting the twists here and the twists there, you know, having this character finally fight that character that you've been building up. Oh, it's nothing funner than that.
Mhm.
That's a good time in your head right there as you're, trying to spew it onto the page.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It is a lot of fun, and I love playing in my worlds, but I don't know if I prefer that over reading other people's worlds. I think it's kind of neck and neck,
Yeah.
honestly, because especially like after I finished the first draft of my new book that's coming out, The Nomad's Crucible. I finished that 3 years ago, I think, and then I was just so burned out. I just dropped it for over a year before I started working on it again. So
Yeah.
there is that sense of burnout with writing that you're like, oh, okay, I just need to go read somebody else. Uh, yeah, it's only this year that I really buckled down and finished everything, and I've been slowly reading through my book on my Kindle now so that I can make sure that there's no final edits I need to make. And I tossed it out to beta readers and everything like that. So it's only this year that I really finally got completely serious, and it's hard as a writer. And my hat goes off to you, man. But working on your fifth book, so you got More Than a Vampire, More Than a
Mhm.
Gunslinger, More Than a God War,
Yeah.
and then
The
you've got a short story that's attached to More Than a Vampire.
yeah, I have a short story collection that
Yeah,
that has characters that have showed up in the first three books, mostly
right.
cameo characters or whatever, or
Hmm.
characters that my beta readers and stuff said, oh, these are really interesting characters. So yeah, I have nine stories in that, and it's already done. The editor's almost done. The cover artist, he's pretty close to being done as well. I
Hmm.
think he's working on the back cover right now. So that book is coming out sometime this year. We had just my wife was having surgery and stuff like that, so we were just like, all right, put everything on hold. I was hoping to have it out this summer, but it'll probably be in the fall. And
Nice.
then I've just been working on the next full length novel. I've been working on it for a little while. I've got like three more chapters to do. So all the climax and everything is picking up. And Nathan, who
Yeah.
he's been kind of reading as I go along, and he's like, man, he's like, this is the best. This is the best one you've ever written. This is going to be a well, I guess I've leaked it out there a little bit. It's called More Than a Dragon. So
Okay.
it's the oldest story in. So it takes place in 79 A.D. Um,
Wow.
during the height of the Roman Empire and
Wow.
stuff. So we'll let more out of what's going on with the book a little bit later. But yeah, it's it can be hard, especially after the second book I wrote. I definitely had burnout. Like because I wrote it because I purposely I put this weight on myself where I was like, you know what, Joe, you have to write 1,000 words every single day. Like if you don't,
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna hate you. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, there'd be days where I'd only get like 300 words in, and I'm just at the end of the day, I'm just sitting here like, oh, Joe, why are you doing this to yourself? You're like, why are you not? But I wrote that book, Gunslinger, in 79 days. And
Wow.
and it's funny. I look back on that and I'm like, Joe, why can't you like have that kind of pace right now? Like I'd want to like you'd be done with your book in like in like a week. But it's hard. It's hard to keep that kind of pace, especially when you're working 10-hour days. You have a full time job. You know, uh, but yeah. So I took like I don't know, 5 months off of writing anything after that. And that's kind of when I really started pushing on my channel after that, book came out. So it's kind of like that balancing act. It's like, all right, if I'm going to write less, I'm going to do more YouTube.
Hmm.
I always like to stay busy. I don't like the whole thing about like, oh, it's so much like, I like that. Sometimes you can't get more done than you would like, but I do like being busy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool, man. I was gonna ask like how you fit all that in and what your you know do you have a set routine where oh I sit down every morning and I write for an hour or 2 hours. Stephen King, I think he gets up at 5 a.m. and he sits down until he's written at least 2,500 words, and then he's good for
Yeah.
the day or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard Stephen King say like what he's because I remember I watched a whole interview with him and George R. R. Martin. They were like, and George was like, "How do you write so much?"
Right?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, and I think Stephen King says something to the effect of like he wakes up 5 o'clock or whatever, and he writes 6 pages. He's like,
Yeah.
I write my 6 pages, and then he treats it like a job. Like, wake up 5 a.m., get my coffee, whatever, and then 6 pages, and then I'll go home. I'll clock out.
Right.
Uh, and but 6 pages is a lot. But for him, what with the back in the day, they used to do the joke, what like he gets paid by the pound or something like that. Because the books are so huge.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
but for me, when I'm like in the writing mode, and I'm, uh, I wake up and I have an hour drive to work, so I'll put my phone up in the holster or whatever, and just kind of see where I'm at, and then I'll click it, and then I'll do some like dictation as I'm
Oh, wow.
driving. You know,
Nice.
I'll just spew out whatever, and of course, I mean the voice recognition is getting better than it used to be, but it's still not great. So I have to do a lot of self editing once I get, but like that's what I'll do for like 40-ish minutes until I hit real traffic because I'm rural. So I got about 35, 40 miles of nobody in my way basically.
Wow.
Um, so that's I'll do some writing there, and then I have to kind of edit it, and then I can kind of do the same thing a little bit while I'm out on my route. I'll
Mhm.
just kind of have the phone down, and then I get to a stopping point, and then I can just grab my phone for like 30 seconds. And it used to be, because my route's different than it used to be, but what I used to do is I get to my route, and then I do a relay, and they're about 10 to 15 minutes. And all I'd do is be thinking about what I wanted to write for 15 minutes. And then I'd get in the truck, write it out real quick, and then move to the next stop, and then do another 15. So I was kind of, and that's what, like, a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, I can write like 5,000 words in a day. And then they're like, the hardest part's the editing. And I'm like, for me, that's not the case. I don't do a lot of heavy editing. Like my grammar still is, that's why I have an editor, right? But
Yeah.
um, but as far as like, I do a lot of self editing. Like as I'm thinking about it, I'm already editing it in my head, and then when I
Yeah.
write it down, I'm like, okay, that's not, because I'm one of the people, I forget, it was a famous author, but their big rule was like, especially when you're doing dialogue, you have to read the dialogue out to yourself to see if it sounds like something a person actually would say. And
Yeah.
so I do that a lot with my dialogue. That's why it takes me a while, because I'll just read my dialogue out and be like, I don't think they would use that word, or that sounds like cringy with the way that, if you're, especially if you're trying to have some evil guy sound really cool, you're like, that's coming off campy. Like, let's use some different words to kind of spice it up a bit.
Yeah.
But that's normally how I do it. I just, little chunks. I write on my phone. I don't even have my
Mhm.
phone on me, but I use Google Docs to write pretty much
Yeah.
everything.
Mhm.
So I have my phone. I can, if I'm around the house, I can hit the laptop. Like, that's why I love Google Docs, because it's just everywhere and it's really easy,
Mhm.
accessible. Now, formatting and stuff like that is weird on Google Docs, but
Yeah, it is.
but as far as like just accessibility, I mean, that's how I write, because I cannot just sit. I wish I could just sit down and just write, but like, it's so weird. I've done it a couple times. I'll be in here. I'm like, oh, I got free time. The kids gone, everybody. And I'll just sit here, and it's just like, I was like, nope, I got to stand up and take my phone and walk around. It's like, I don't know. That's just my style, I guess.
I get that. Yeah, I have not ventured into the world of dictation yet. I probably should. I'm always nervous, 'cause like sometimes I'll do when I'm sending long text to people or whatever. I'll do it for that,
Yeah.
and I'm just watching as Siri is typing it out, and I'm like, that's not what I said. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah. That's why I said, like, you still have to definitely and I've gotten better at this, because it's so funny, like my editors and my beta readers, when I told them, I'm like, yeah, I use dictation software sometimes, and they're like, oh yeah, we can tell with, like, because sometimes it'll use words that sound like the word but not. You're just like, oh crap.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I find myself having to over enunciate.
Oh yeah,
In,
or you
in
have to like slow down and like really hit on certain words for them to understand. Yeah, I mean, it's
exactly.
it's getting better. It's so funny that we were talking about that, because I was at the doctor's office, and this doctor was like he was checking out my knee or whatever, and he's talking so fast into his little mic thing. He had like a
Yeah.
little lapel mic or something, and it was going to the computer, and I could see the computer just going. I'm like, what program do you have? Because
Mhm.
I need to get my hands on that program, because he's like, oh yeah, it's the best. It's almost like 98% accurate. I'm like,
Wow.
I need that. like the old school
What was
dragon
it?
thing that they used to do
Oh,
commercials for.
Dragon.
Yeah, they used to do. I used to see those like late night infomercials all the time
Yeah.
for Dragon Audio.
So what was it the doctor used?
I don't remember. It's been so long. I'm sure, and that's another thing I do. I have a note app, and anytime I come up with a good idea or something, I'll type. So I have like but probably like 50 little note things that I need to go through. It's probably in there somewhere.
I do
Because
that too, man. Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
interesting, I just throw it into a note thing, and then it's like, I don't know if you do this, but like I'll just randomly be going through my notes for whatever reason, and then I just stumble upon something I hadn't thought about in like 6 months. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's that. But
Oh, JCM Burns
oh,
here.
goes in
Good
the
to see you,
house.
man. Dragon is the best software out there after you trained it properly. Hi, Fina. Good to see you.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. It's so funny. Like at the beginning of this whole writing thing, like like I said, the first two books I wrote pretty quickly. The first book I wrote in 117 days, and the second book I wrote in 79 days. So I have a personality where I can get addicted to stuff, like
Yeah.
not drugs or anything, but like I get addicted to like certain video games. Back in the day, I would get addicted to like so. I got addicted to writing, so I'd be like I said, I had to get 1,000 in, and if I didn't, I would be in a bad mood or whatever.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, my wife was like, "These damn books for writing stuff," you know. But now she's like full on board. She even like helps with some of my lives and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
I've noticed that. That's cool.
but yeah, so it's weird now. Like she'll come up with ideas. She's like, well, why don't you do this? Or like let's set up your office a little bit better, or buy you something,
Mhm.
And so I'm like, all right, she's so I'm bored now. But yeah, so the Dragon software thing, that's something I've been thinking about. I just wonder how it would integrate with the phone and stuff. Because like I said, I do most of my stuff on my phone, which blows people's minds. They're like, got to be keyboard and mouse.
Right,
I
exactly.
regret
Reverse
reverse
ADHD.
ADHD.
Nice. Are you doing NaNoWriMo this year?
Oh my goodness. It's so funny because I started like my social media, whatever you want to call it. I started it on Twitter. That was like my first like thing that I did, and I was like, again, get addicted to stuff. So I was super hardcore on Twitter, like tweeting all this stuff and getting, but like I started during NaNoWriMo, and I didn't know what it was, never heard of it. Like I said, I was just out of the loop on all this, stuff. But I started looking into it, and it was like, I think you have to like write 40 or 50,000 words in a
Yeah.
month. I'm like, and especially starting off, I'm like, that's crazy. Like, I like who has that kind of time, But like some people can bust out, 10,000 words in a day, and I guess if you can do that, then you only have to do that what 4 or 5 times in a month. But
Right.
yeah, like
Yeah, that's
the best I've ever done in a month was probably like I don't know 35,000 words or something like that, and
not
that's
bad.
me pushing myself to the max. Like I could never hit the numbers on NaNoWriMo. At least maybe once I go full time, maybe that would be possible, but not while I'm working. Like I said, I'm completely happy now. If I get 800 to 1,000 words, I'm like solid day. Like I am 100% good with that. But yeah,
Yeah.
NaNoWriMo, it's fun. It's fun to see what people are doing, but it also can be discouraging. Like I
Yeah.
said, I was just starting out, so like I was doing like 300, 500 word days when I first started, and you see people all month long, yeah, hit 4,000 words today. Oh, I got 7,000 words today. I'm like,
Wow.
geez, like do I suck? Like, I don't know, you know,
Yeah.
but
I had considered doing NaNoWriMo this year, and I still might, or I might just do my own thing like CHAS
yeah,
or something like that. I
yeah,
don't know, but I know Sanderson does his Sandorimo, write a book with me this month,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
He could write a whole novella in 1 month, probably. Easy.
yeah, probably so. Yeah. They used to have an app that you can use for the transcription. Okay. Dang overachievers, right? Right? Yeah, those overachievers put the rest of us to shame, don't they?
Yeah. Well, and sometimes, the inner you, your ego is like, most of their stuff is probably just garbage. They're just probably just spitting it out there. But I don't know. Some people can do it, man. Like
Yeah.
I've heard other. I don't know if Joe was the one that was like, oh yeah, like if you do like 10,000 words, you're having to redo half of it at least.
Yeah,
I don't.
that's what I feel like.
I don't know
Yeah.
what your best day was, Chaz. But I think the best day I've ever had was like 2,800, maybe 3,000 words. But that was like that was me writing. I was on the last chapter, and my last chapters are always like twice as big as all the other chapters because I like big finales. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so like when I was, yeah, I think for it was probably during Gunslinger. Yeah, I had like 2,800 word day or whatever, and that's with me working like 10 hours. But I was just like, but it was like I was just in the moment, just like okay, okay, okay. Every second I had a free second, I was like, boom, 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 boom. But that's probably my limit. Like I don't think I could probably get much more than that.
Yeah. I think my best day, and it only happened once, was 5,000. And
Nice,
yeah, and
nice. Was
that,
that for the
yeah.
newest book?
And- What's that?
Was that for this newest book?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. That was for this newest book. And by the end of that writing period, I was spent. Man, I was just,
I
and
bet.
and part of that was I was in between jobs at the time. I had left
Oh,
one job and I was looking for something else. And yeah, but even during that time, the most I had normally done was like 2,500. But yeah, 5,000 was probably my best. And yeah, it's
now,
crazy.
and I've always had a question about like these, like when you have a really good day,
Hmm.
like what were you in one chapter or did you finish a chapter and go into another chapter?
Yeah, yeah, I finished one and went into another one.
Okay.
And yeah, there would be some days depending on what the scene was I'm writing. I might get 3 chapters done in a day or something like that. So yeah, I tend to like to write short chapters.
Okay.
I also prefer to read short chapters, so that's why I do that, because it makes me feel like I'm accomplishing more when I finish reading a short chapter versus chapters that are 24, 25 to 50 pages long. I'm like, really? Does it need to be this long?
So what are how many words would you say your normal chapters are?
Oh gosh, I don't know about word count, but I think my chapters average like maybe 8 to 10 pages.
That sounds
So
about right. Yeah,
yeah,
because I know like with my short story collection, I each story is 3 chapters, and each chapter I tried to actually purposely have them just be smaller. They were like 1,500 words,
yeah,
um, but like my average chapters have been pretty. And I don't really plan it out this way, although I do like to have my chapters more than 2,500 words.
yeah,
Like once I hit 2,500, I feel like okay, this feels like a reasonable chat. But like most of them end up being about 3,000. But I know like Sanderson has some like 10,000 word,
oh,
15,000 word chapters. I'm like,
I know.
oh man.
Yeah, there's a reason why they joke about his name being Sanderbot, because he's just like a machine, dude. He's like, oh, puts
Well,
the
yeah.
rest of us to shame. I mean, he cranks out good stuff. I just finished reading Mistborn Secret History, so I have now read everything in the Cosmere up to date.
Wow,
Yeah, I
man.
so now I'm just waiting on Wind and Truth in December, and then that's yeah.
See, I am jealous, man. Like, because I came, probably everybody feels this way when they first get on BookTube. You're probably just like, man, everybody's so far ahead of me in the Dark Tower or the
Yeah,
Sanderson universe or Malazan, and you're just like, man, I wish I could be up with people. So I've been trying to climb up the Mistborn ladder. I think I get the Lost Metal. I think that's the third. Is that? So I got that one
yeah.
to do,
Mhm.
and then I want to jump into some of the bigger, more critically acclaimed books. I don't know. Is it The Way of the Kings? Is that the first one in the big series, or is that
Yeah,
War?
Way of Kings. Yep.
There's Way of Kings, Oathbringer, and then. Uh, but yeah, I want to get into those big books and see
Mhm.
how I feel about them. But yeah, I'm so far behind on Sanderson right now. But I do love to see like the hype that everybody's like, oh, especially when you were doing the like uh, all the books that he was putting out, like you was like unboxing them and stuff. I was like, I wish I could have been a part of all that. It looked, it was so
Yeah.
fun to see people doing that.
Yeah, that was really cool. I only did the ebooks for that Kickstarter campaign, so I just got them on my Kindle, but yeah, some of those unboxings were really cool. And yeah, Stormlight Archive is awesome. Way of Kings is my least favorite, but it's a lot of people's favorite. So yeah, it just depends. For me, it took a little bit too long to get going, but other people just absolutely, it's the best book they ever read, and I appreciate that. It's
Yeah.
yeah, I guess my attention span was like, okay, come on, let's get going.
Yeah. Well, and like you hear people, it is now. Are those books? Are they in the same world as Mistborn, or are they like? Because I know it's like a multiverse, right? So is it just in
Yeah.
a whole different like universe, a whole different world, or
It's all part of the Cosmere, but Mistborn is on Scadrial, and uh, Stormlight Archive is on Roshar, so it's a different planet.
okay, but it's
Yeah,
still the same universe. Like they're
yeah,
just.
still technically the same universe, and the further along you get, there's some crossovers and stuff. So you
I've
get your
always
world hoppers in there, and
Yeah, I've always wondered how he went about that because like I know some people are just like fascinated trying to find all the connections and stuff like that.
there's a
And
ton of them in the Lost Metal in the final book of Mistborn Era 2. So yeah, I kind of loosely recommend to people that they read a little bit of Stormlight Archive at least before they jump into the Lost Metal, because there's a lot of crossover.
where okay, so well, seeing as how I still have to do that one, where should I jump? Like, what book should I read before I read that?
Well, there's a particular group in the Lost Metal that shows up pretty early on in Stormlight Archive. So I think Words of Radiance,
Okay,
which is book two. So probably at least read the first two books.
okay, maybe maybe they'll give me the excuse to jump into the Stormlight.
Yeah. I mean, you won't, it's not absolutely necessary, but I definitely think it's helpful, because you'll spot things that you wouldn't have spotted otherwise. But yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I try to do with with my books. Like I'm not big on like the multiverse, thing, and it's all just one timeline,
Yeah.
and we'll jump around the timeline a little bit, but since how a lot of my characters are long lived, gods are immortal,
Mhm.
mostly, you'll get to see different ones, but I've tried to set it up to where like outside of the trilogy, it's like you could just read Gunslinger if you wanted to read Gunslinger, and it's not gonna you're not gonna be like who's that, you know.
Right.
But if you did read Vampire and God War, and then you read Gunslinger, you're like, oh, because it takes place like 170 years later, in America. You might be like, oh, this what this person's doing. Okay, all right,
Right.
and so you get little cameos here and there, and it's like, and I feel like I like that when I read a book series or watch a movie or something. You watch a TV series that has that kind of feel to it, because it's like, well, like sometimes they'll do it bad where it's like they're in a city where there's supposedly a superhero or somebody, and it's like, why did they never show up? Why did they never like say anything about it? Like you could have at least wrote them out, be like, oh, so and so's off, Spider-Man or whatever's off doing this, so he can't help us. But they don't do that. So it's like Spider-Man was in the city, but he didn't come to help you, and like this almost destroyed the city. That doesn't make any sense. You know.
Yeah.
So I tried to like weave that stuff in. It's like, well, of course so and so would be in the general vicinity,
Yeah.
or like, they made their home here in the last book, in this book, and you know, why would they not be here? So you'll get a little cameos here and there from different characters, and the book I'm working on now, it's the first book in the actual timeline. It's the oldest story that I've told.
Yeah.
So I get to do some cool stuff where I'm like planting certain things in this book, and then if you've read the other books, you're like, oh, okay, that's why that happened,
Hmm.
because so and so did this, 1500 years before that, and the rise of certain gods will be explained through this book. So I
Hmm.
try to make it to where you don't have to read every book, but if you do, you just get little bits of nuggets and Easter eggs and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's really good. I'm gonna catch up on the chat here real quick. We got Nicole here. Hi, Nicole.
Woo.
Most people tend to burn out after the first week due to pushing too hard. Yeah, yeah, that is very true. Um, I think that might be in reference to either BookTube or writing a book. But
Oh yeah,
um,
you can.
I mean, my biggest day is writing the ending too. Every everything's set up, wrapping stuff together goes quicker. Yeah, very true. Very,
Yeah,
very true.
that's
And
dead on.
I like that you do the longest chapter at the end, JR, with your big epic
Yeah,
moments.
yeah,
And my biggest writing days were either during my teen years or during the lockdown.
yeah, yeah. If you don't have
Yeah.
anything, yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird. Like Nicole would like, because that's what you would think, right? Most people would be like, oh, like I can, like on my days off or something, I can write so much. Not me. I've never had a big writing day on a day off. Even like if I had a day where my wife was working, my son was, at school or grandma's, like it's weird. I have to be busy for me to get a good writing pace going. Like I have to be doing other stuff. If I just sit down, I do have like that ADHD brain where it's just like, oh, what squirrel? What? Or you're like, look, or if you're like, you're typing or whatever, and then it's like, oh, let me just scroll over here to YouTube and see what, or scroll over to Discord and see what people are talking about. I have to have other stuff like happening around me. But yeah, like they were saying, Joe was saying towards the end, you have this like you're pumped because you're like, oh, I'm towards the end of the book. All the crazy stuff is happening, but like almost every book, like the ending chapter is the biggest chapter in the book for me. And I remember, um, I want to say for Gunslinger, my average chapter was like 2,900 words. And then the last chapter is almost 8,000 words. Cause I was just like, I got to the end. I'm like, all right, I'm going to write the crap out of this. Like they're going to get to see everything that's going on in this final battle. We're just, all the descriptions, it's going to be super detailed, and, and as I think about it, it's like, I can imagine now, because most of my books fall between like 80 and 90,000 words. I can see how people can have, 100 and 30,000 word books, because like if I wrote every chapter with as much detail as I write the last chapter, yeah, my books would be like almost twice as long, you know.
Right.
But I don't know. I kind of purposely try to make my books not be too crazy long.
Mhm.
Although, like my best friend Nathan's like, "Hey man, if you're ever gonna do like major crossover stuff, you got to make it a huge book." And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe when I get down the road." And something like that. But like I like the Will White method. Like if you look at Will White's Cradle books, like they all look almost identical, except for like the last book is a bit thicker than the rest. But I just think having smaller books tends to kind of, yeah, you can pull in more people, because like when I was younger, when I was a teenager, if I seen a book that was like 600 pages, I'm like, not even gonna try it. Like that's way, like I don't know, it's like that's a huge commitment, especially for someone
I
who's got
get that.
ADHD. Like before audiobooks became a real big thing, it was just like yeah, that's a lot of time. And I was in sports and all, and being stupid when you're a kid, you think, oh, and like you were saying, Chaz, like you're like, oh, you have so much time and stuff. It's like, well, as you get older, you realize you have more time than you think you have, and
Yeah, right.
you've been dumping a lot of time into like needless things. Like, did I need to watch did I need to watch 5 seasons of Smallville this week? No, I probably didn't have. Like I
I
probably could have
took all that. No,
I probably could have saved 80 hours this week and put a couple of those hours into writing. So
yeah.
it's always a give and take. It's like, what do you want to do? Like I said, with my writing versus YouTube, like sometimes like I have some ideas with YouTube, and I want to start building those things. Well, then it's like, well, I guess my writing's gonna have to take a little bit of a back seat. And I try, like when I first started doing YouTube, it was stressful because I was like, I don't want to take any time away from my writing, but I
Yeah.
do want to do this YouTube thing. And now I'm like, all right, Joe, like you're fine. You're working on your fifth book. It's okay. Like
Yeah.
you can go slower on certain things, but I don't know, like, because when you started writing the newest book, like how were you doing that with YouTube?
Well, at the time I started writing the book, let's see, was I on YouTube? Yeah, I was, but I hadn't. Wait, maybe it's been more than, oh my goodness. So maybe, maybe it's taken me longer to write this book than I think because, yeah, so actually I started writing this book I think in 2017 actually, and I didn't start the channel until 2019. Oh
Oh,
man,
okay.
it's been even longer since I started this book. I'm a regular George R. R. Martin right here. Um, yeah, so yeah, for some reason I felt like it was less time than it was, but yeah, it's actually been like 7 years since I started writing this book. So it's
How
taken
long
me
has
a
it been
while.
since you? Has it been 7 years since you finished it?
Uh, no, it's been like 6 years since I finished it. Yeah. So I started it in 2017 and I finished it in 2018,
Okay.
and then I just stepped away for the longest time. So apparently, yeah, for the entire time I've been on BookTube until recently, I wasn't working on the book.
Yeah, because I know it was about what, been 6 years, maybe, or 6 years, 6 months, maybe a year since you've really like like you're like, all right, I'm getting back into the editing, and
Hmm.
trying to give people updates and stuff. It's probably been about 6 months or so. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just so I've been interested about like when you really started writing the book and integrating BookTube with it and everything.
Hmm. Yeah, it's been a long time, and for the longest time when I started my channel, I didn't talk about my book a whole lot. I still don't a whole lot, but I try not to make it a marketing thing, but I realize the importance of marketing my book, and
Yeah.
I realize that BookTube is a good outlet for that, but I also don't want people to think I'm just selling myself
Yeah.
every time. But I do like the way you do it and how like Brian Lee Durfee does it.
Yeah.
With just snippet right at the beginning. Hey, I'm the author of More Than
Yep.
Event, the More Than Human series, and stuff like that. So I like that, and I might start doing that. People always tell me that I need to start talking about my book more, and on that note, here you go, guys. This
That's
is my first book, Talendor's Guest. It's
and that
available
is a
now.
great cover.
Yeah, my cover artist is really really awesome. We kind of lost touch, unfortunately, but yeah, she's amazing, and you can still find you can actually find this and other magnificent works of art that she's done on her website. Her name is Lindsay Berker, and
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, she's really amazing. So, but
Yeah, I got it on ebook. I bought it I don't know, it's been about a year ago. So, but yeah, I think I'm gonna buy the paperback because I love that cover. Like
cool.
that's a weird thing. Like I'm a little bit like every so often I'll get to physically read read a book, maybe four or five physical books a year. But
Hmm.
it's just I just don't have time, right? I just don't have
Right.
time to sit down and read. So it's mostly audio. But if I do like a book, I I will go out and buy the book. Like I'm actually going to have Richard Kadri on my channel again at the end of the month, and
Hmm.
but yeah, like I always talk about the Grand Dark, but I've never had a physical copy until now. So
Oh, yeah, that's a great
and I,
cover, man.
and I was like, the cover is so cool. Why do I not have a physical copy of this book? And it's like one of my top 10 books of all time. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
so
I bought that one on my Kindle and I still need to read it. I want to check him out. Uh
oh that yeah. I mean, most people know him from Sandman Slim, but
yeah,
I think
right.
that's his best book.
That's
Um,
cool.
yeah. So that's kind of how I do it. And then like with Dresden Files, like there for a while, every year my wife was getting me a new autographed copy. So
Wow.
so that's kind of how I do it. Like I'll listen to the audio, and if I really like the book, I'll buy the book, or I'll try to find a autographed copy. Like I got a bunch of like Brian Keene, like The Rising stuff, because that's my wife's favorite book series of all time. So we've got a bunch of autographed stuff, from him and whatnot. But yeah, it's just like I like to collect. I like good covers. Like I said, that's why I'm gonna. I got your book on ebook, but I think AR with him is doing. I think in August we're doing a readathon, and it's going to be like an indie readathon. So I'm going to put your book on the list, and
Oh, cool.
I think I'm going to buy it physically, and then I'm gonna try to read because it's not a huge book. So uh,
Yeah.
I think I'll be able to read through it, and then I'll throw it up on the shelf for people to look at it.
Cool. Yeah, I was gonna say, I got a hold of thanks to Nicole actually. I uh, I was watching one of her videos one time, and she was talking about this formatting software called Atticus, and I'm like, I'd never heard of this, so I went and looked at it, and I'm like, wow, because like everybody talks about oh, what is it, Vellum, I
Yeah,
think,
for Vellum.
and not only is it twice as expensive as Atticus, but I've heard the learning curve is quite steep. But Atticus is great, and so that's what I've been using to format the Nomad's Crucible, and I'm going to go back and reformat Talendor's Guest afterward and upload a new copy of the formatted text. So I was gonna say, if you want to, you can just wait until the revised formatting comes out. But if you're wanting a physical copy now, I'm not going to tell you no.
So with this Atticus, does it format in like for KDP? Is that like,
Yeah,
or does it?
yeah,
Uh,
it'll format for you can format for print and for ebook. So yeah, and it
See, I
will
might have to.
yeah, it'll format and you can you can download, you can export it in PDF format, which is what KDP requires usually
Yeah.
uh, for their uploads and everything. So, and I downloaded it on EPUB to my Kindle, and that's how I've been reading it on my Kindle. And the formatting is spot on. It
Oh,
looks
see.
so good.
Yeah.
So
My editor will she'll do formatting for me, and like, she's added like some little stuff in there like a sword break and stuff like
yeah,
that.
you
But
can
then
do that in this software too.
but then like my wife will end up, when we upload it to KDP, she'll end up like making, like, if anything's off, she'll do all that. But like I said, I am technology deficient, so I I definitely need to learn how to how to do all that stuff.
Well,
And
Atticus is really user friendly, and you can write in it too. You can just sit down and write your book in Atticus if you wanted to. So and it's web based, so you don't have to download anything to a computer.
ooh,
I think you can do it on mobile, although I'm not positive how well it works. But yeah, you can write it in Atticus as well. So
I'm always down to try any kind of new software. And that, like, when I first thought like, okay, I'm gonna write this, I started like watching so much YouTube videos about like, all right, marketing, all right, how format, like how to, all these things, because like when I throw myself into something, I want it to try to be as good as I can, possibly make it. So yeah, like I'm definitely going to be looking into that, like any little advantage that I can get my hands on, especially with this book that I'm working on now. Like this is going to be the book that I'm going to put like the most resources in. I'm probably like, because people ask fantasy worlds, right? Everyone's like, we got to have a map, we got to have
right,
this, and it's just like, it's so like, it's expensive to like have artists and stuff do things. But I think this one is going to be like, I'm going to go all out. I'm going to have, probably going to have a world map, probably going to have multiple pictures of the villains and the heroes and stuff in
that's
it.
awesome.
So
Yeah,
yeah, this,
I'm definitely going to do I'm trying to work out getting a map for my new book coming out.
that would be cool.
So yeah, I definitely want to get that. Talendor's Guest does have some pictures in it that Lindsay was kind enough to include in for me. So there's some good interior artwork as well. So that'll
Yeah,
be
yeah. The one thing, like, for, because yours is a high fantasy, right? It's a whole new world that you created.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you get to kind of come up with the map any way you any way you want, So that's one positive thing about having, your own world you created. You can make the map look as weird, as funky as you want. Like for me, all this takes place in our world. It's just kind of like Dresden. Like you just,
Yeah,
the supernatural
alternate
people.
history with
Yeah.
fantasy
So
elements. Yeah.
I'm going to be working with like, I'm going to make like old style maps that you might have
Hmm.
seen back in those days, and then I'll I'll probably label it like, oh, this empire runs this area, or this cabal runs this area. That's how I'm gonna do it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna come back to some of these earlier comments, but I do want to showcase. My sister mentioned either an app or website that helps with D&D maps. Maybe they'll help at least to get a rough idea of what you might like. And I don't know if it's the same one, but I use oh ink something. Let's see, software. Let's see. Oh yeah, Incarnate.
Okay, I've heard of it.
Yeah,
I don't know much about it, but I've heard the name.
yeah, it's really good. I just have to play with it. I'm gonna try my hand at creating my own map.
That would be
So
sweet.
Yeah, I used it way back in the day for a rough map that I created for this book, but they've upgraded it so much now that it's like I think it's time to redo the map. I still have the old one saved though, so I can kind of reference it.
Yeah, tweak it a little bit.
Yeah. Um, but yeah. So JCM says he's done 3 chapters in a day, but that's not a pace he can keep up with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Woo.
it is a breakneck pace for sure. Oh, that's awesome, Jenny. Yeah, definitely try Nano. That would be fun. I'd love to see some of your writing.
Yeah, I mean that's a good way to kind of just even if you're not hitting the numbers of NaNoWriMo, that's a good like motivational thing to at least get you going, get the juices flowing.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of use it as a tool. Yeah. Your struggle with Sanderson is the same with my struggle with Dresden. I'm only at turncoat and I want to be fully cut up by the end of the year. I love it. Yeah, I forget where it was. I think with changes, that's where I said, okay, from this point on, I'm just reading one a month until I finish it. That's
Yeah.
where I said, okay, I'm committed. I need to finish this and see where it's going because it's that good.
Yeah, I mean, when I started Dresden, I read Stormfront, and to me, Stormfront was just okay, but there
Hmm.
was enough kernels of like cool things in it that I was like, you know what, my friends like, oh man, you got to like just keep going, get through book three, I've always been one of those people that's like, don't tell me I have to get through a certain amount of books, but they were small books, and and then once I did get through, he's like, once you get to Grave Peril, right, you're on book three. He's like, he kept like harping at me like, pay attention during the party, pay attention during the party, and I'm like, okay, I'm paying attention, you know. And it was like after that, yeah, I was off to the races after book three. I was just like, I need to know more about all these people that were at this party. Like it's so freaking cool. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, definitely. Once you get up to those higher books, around changes, all the books are hovering in that 500-page range from there. They're all bigger books, and but the stories are just, oh man, because I think you go changes, ghost story, cold days, skin
Hmm.
game. Yeah, man, like skin
Yeah,
game as
they're just bangers from that point, and
yeah.
and that even though they get a little bigger, they don't feel like it because like we were talking about earlier, Jim Butcher is probably the king of pacing. Like
Oh yeah.
his pacing is just spot on. So
Yeah, they don't
yeah,
feel his books never feel bloated. The only one that I would say that might feel a little bit is Peace Talks. But again, that was kind of chopped, and they kind of, just kind of had to do it that way. But yeah,
yeah.
all his books are paced just, and then like Battlegrounds.
Oh,
Battlegrounds is the biggest book with that kind of pace I have ever like. You just like if you're not prepared for it, like
mhm.
you're just like foot to the floor for 500 pages. You're like I can't stop.
And I still have emotional wounds from Battleground. Like
Oh man,
seriously. Yeah, I'm like,
how do you do that?
certain characters, I'm like, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but yeah, be prepared.
Be
Yeah,
prepared, yeah, for anguish and torment. Like
yeah,
you,
yeah.
they're like in that book. I've never wanted somebody to die so much. Like there's like
Right? Oh my
I'm like,
goodness, yes. I
I'm
know
like
the
take
exact character you're talking about too.
I'm like take like and my friend and like Nathan, he's like that person better. I'll tell. I'm not gonna say their name, right? But he's like they better not get redeemed. I do not want a redemption arc for this person.
Right?
I
Yeah,
was like, I'm right there with you. Just find a way to
exactly.
take them out.
Exactly. I was in a big riding group and we drank and did sprints all day. At least the lockdown did something for me. Well,
Yeah,
that's a good way to do it. Do riding sprints, yeah.
yeah. If you can get
Oh,
into,
yep. Yes,
You
you,
know,
Nicole. Thank you for Atticus.
yeah. I mean, if you can get into a group and I mean that can help you out tremendously. Bouncing ideas back and forth off of each other, and especially if you can get into like I've seen a lot of Facebook groups that are like that, where it's like you read my chapter, I read your chapter, and you do back and forth critiques and stuff, and that's probably really great. But again, I'm so busy that I can't like guarantee that I'm going to be able to read. Like I would love to, but I can't. I
Yeah.
can't always guarantee, especially when you run a YouTube channel and you're trying to read 4 to however many books a month that you're like I feel bad that I can't like promise that I'm gonna read somebody else's manuscript or whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I get that. Mona Lisa Reads is here. Hello, hello. Better
Oh.
late than never, indeed. I laughed out loud on the bus reading Guard and the Valkyries. Guard is so awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she's a favorite character for sure.
We were watching the first episode of Halo season 2 yesterday, and me and my wife are going back and forth on who we think should play guard. And like, I think the chick that plays the sniper in Halo, she's like 6'2". She's and blonde hair, the whole deal. But
Yeah.
my wife likes the character, the woman who plays Bran of Tarth.
Yep, that's exactly who I was thinking of.
They're like
Yeah. Yeah,
they're like, oh,
Gwendolyn
if you
Christie.
dress in the next couple years, she can still pull it off or whatever. I'm like, not gonna argue. Like, she's awesome.
Yeah, she is. She would be great for guard. And I'm really happy when you had Jim Butcher on your channel, which by the way, well played, my man. I still don't know how you got him on, but you did.
Yeah,
When
I'm
you had
lucky,
him on
man.
your channel and he said, I am in the writer's room or it doesn't happen, I'm like,
Yeah,
yes.
like
So that's the way it should be.
that is. Well, here's my thought process. It's like if I'm a producer or something, like I can see a little bit of both sides of the coin. It's like, oh, if I bring the writer of the book in, right, on the negative side, what's going to be the negative?
Yeah.
It could be like, oh, this guy's going to try to slow down the process on everything because he's going to want everything to be perfect. Well, maybe, but I
Yeah.
think most writers are smarter than that. They realize television and movies are a different medium, and certain things aren't going to work. You
Yeah.
know, they're pretty smart. I mean, especially if they're very successful. But like, if I was a producer, I'd want to bring them in because I'm like,
Right.
they know this. They are the reason that the story is popular.
Yeah.
They sell millions of copies for a reason. Let's have them on the writers team at least to help keep everything, you know, I guess I want to say like in check. And it's weird that I have to say that because there's so many of these, Hollywood TV writers now that like think they're better than the person who wrote the worldwide best-selling novels. They're like, we don't I can change their story like as much as I want because I'm a TV writer. I'm like, if you were Jim Butcher, you'd be Jim Butcher, okay? Like,
Right.
it's no like, and then here's the thing, like, would I think it would be fun if I could go full time and be a TV writer. Sure, I would love to do that. But like, I would realize that especially if I'm writing something that's not original, that I'm writing somebody else's book into TV form. I would put it upon myself like I'm a tool. That would be my thought. I am a tool. I am the paintbrush that's going to brush this person's book onto the screen. I'm not somebody like saying, the Mona Lisa was all right, but I'll mark it up a little bit, and like that's not what you should be. Your job should be make this as close to their worldwide best-selling phenomenon as I can, not me put my name on it and be like, I'm the one that wrote the thing.
Right.
But I don't know. I got better get off my soapbox before I get too animated about it. Like,
No, you're good. I'm totally there with you, man. Battlegrounds was too repetitive. Interesting. There's a
you know,
There's an
Yeah,
unpopular opinion,
yeah,
but
I
I'm sure for a lot of people it was. But it should have been combined with the previous book, though. You're right. Yeah, it the only reason it wasn't, they made him cut it down. So
yeah. Well, and I think it was definitely a the company like thinking in their head. It's like, okay, the biggest book that Jim had ever, now he actually has bigger books in his other series, but
yeah,
like for Dresden, the biggest was Cold Days at 190,000 words. Well, I think if you combined Peace Talks and Battlegrounds, it was somewhere close to 300,000, something like that. And that would have
yeah,
been like by far the biggest book. And here's the thing, like I think we would have accepted it as Dresden fans. Would have been like, okay, we get it. It's been a long time. You have a lot of, this is a big thing happening.
yeah,
So we would have accepted somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000 word book. But I think the publisher is like, no, these people aren't going to accept you doubling up the size of a book. And then he said, not with me, but in an interview with somebody else years, right when it was coming out, he was like, "Oh, I wasn't going to be the one to make a $50 book or whatever. I wasn't going to have people paying that much for a book." Now, I don't. I think maybe he was being a little bit, out there, because I don't think it still would have been $50. I don't
yeah.
know what does a Way of Kings or one of those big books go for? Are they in like the 30 range, something like that,
Uh,
or
Light hardcovers, I think, are like 25. I highly doubt that I highly doubt that there's going to be a new release book that's $50. But
yeah,
of course, I mean, some ebooks are $18 new releases. So I'm like,
right? Like
I, I guess
I
you
know
never
you're a big
know.
ebook, you're like the ebook master, like, but like some of these ebooks are ridiculous.
Yeah,
Why are you paying like, yeah, like you said, like 10, 12, close to $20 for an ebook,
yeah,
you know?
exactly. Like it. There have been occasions where I've bought the books for that price, but it's been with a gift card. Like I won't spend $18 of my own money like for an ebook.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, like
I usually wait until they're like go on sale for like $2 or $3, whatever. I'll pay that for an ebook. That's why with my ebooks I try to keep them low price. I think my book is currently at like 2.99 or 3.99. I
yeah.
keep it there. There's no reason to make people pay that for an ebook.
Yeah, and I've kind of thought that way with all my books. Like I think I've had to, because of the price increase in paper or whatever, I've had to like up my things, but I only upped them by like $1. So
Mhm.
it was like 19.99 for the hardcover, and then it was like third 12.99 or something like that for the paperback, and then I'd leave my ebooks at 3.99, like
Mhm.
always. I know,
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no reason, like it doesn't really cost, like there's a digital like amount like that it will change how much you make, but it's almost negligible. Like
Yeah.
you're never going to
Exactly.
notice it. So I'm like, I don't think, and I know what some of them do. Like even some of the self-published people will do this. They're like, okay, well now I have a name, I'm a big name, so I'm gonna up my ebook to $10, and people
Yeah.
will pay for it. And I'm like, I I know, because you're like, oh, everybody wants the next book and they're gonna want the next book, and but I just don't think there should be any reason, even if you're a big time author, that you should probably. I couldn't see myself going higher than like 5.99 or 6.99, even if I was like, even if I became like the next Jim Butcher, like 4.99 maybe. But it's
Mhm.
an ebook. It's like you're not paying for anything. I can see
Yeah.
when paper goes up, it's like, yeah, I'm sorry guys, I gotta raise the price of the paperback, or whatever. But yeah, I try to keep it to the point where it's like anybody can get the book.
Yeah.
Everybody, eventually you can find a spare $15 here or there. You can't do it all the time. I can't buy
Yeah.
all the books I want to buy all the time. but I want to make it reasonable for people who, if they really like my books or whatever, say they get say they do what I do, let's say they listen to the audio or they get the ebook for $3, and they're like, man, I really like this, but I really like that cover too, kind of like me, and then
Mhm.
I want them to be able to go buy it. I don't want I don't want to charge them $25, $30 for for the hardcover. Like I don't want to pick on her, but like Jenna Morassi, her books are way too expensive. Like,
Right.
I know her books are bigger than my books, but like, it's like I get it. You're well known on YouTube, but you don't need to be charging people like $8 for your ebook or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just 'cause, like I came from a poorer background, so like I think more about, even when I'm charging people for stuff, I'm thinking about prices. I'm like, would I want to be charged this much?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I do too. I'm the same way. Yeah. Jenny says I may want spoilers if our babies are in danger. Well, if you want spoilers, I'll we can talk on Discord if you
Yeah.
want spoilers. I don't want to spoil it publicly here, but feel free to message me and ask if you want spoilers, Jenny. I'll happily talk with you. Um,
Oh Lord.
but yeah, there's uh, uh, you know, yeah.
I want.
No, I better not say anything, but
Well,
publicly.
what I do, and it's just funny. It's what I did with. I actually did this with Malazan. Is that every time I finished a book, I would go and watch Alan from Library of Alexandria do
Hmm.
his review on it, because his was pretty like he was the most honest. Because I feel like a lot of people, like you said, like, oh, if I go back and I actually finish Malazan, I'll feel like I've accomplished something because they're hard to get through. I feel like a lot of people read Malazan like that. They're like,
Yeah.
aha, I finished Malazan, like I did something hard. I'm like, don't feel like that should be in your top 5 reasons for finishing a book series, is just to say I
Yeah.
finished a book series. You know,
I
but
like punishment.
yeah, I punished myself enough to get through what is that, 3 million words or whatever it is. um but yeah, like with Dresden's, like, hey, if she's going through them, I mean, we've done all the Dresden books on discussion, so if she wants to go through and she can watch all of those and see the spoilers. Like, for Dresden, like, I try not to spoil stuff for people because he does so many good twists and turns.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, he does. Sadly, that writing group broke away, but I'm in a great one now, and I stream productivity sprints on Thursdays. Yeah, I've seen you doing your sprints, so that's awesome. Got to be flexible and pivot when, yeah, and the industry is constantly changing too, so there's a lot to keep up with.
Do
Uh,
you think, I was going to ask you a question. Do you think about that when you're writing your stuff? Do you think about like what's popular now, or what, like, do you look at things and go, okay, this is starting to become popular, maybe I should add something like that to my books? Do you think about that?
not really, with some exceptions. I do intentionally think in terms of diversity in my cast, like, not I don't try to put token characters in there or anything like that, but I do think in terms of my readership, am I being, uh, you know, maybe is something I'm writing in the book going to be read in such a way by somebody who might be gay or transgender or something like that, that is going to be hurtful to them. And so I always write with that in mind, like not to alienate certain demographics with the things I'm writing. And I have characters that are on the asexual spectrum and things like that, and so I do have diverse characters in my books. Vast and Tread, my main character in my new book is more of a he's got more of a darker olive complexion, more of like a, kind of almost an Asianish complexion and things like that. And that wasn't necessarily intentional to have a token character in there like that, but I am kind of mindful with writing in a diverse way. I guess I'll put it that way. So because I I appreciate and love all of my readership from various different backgrounds and nationalities and gender expressions and all of that. So that's really important to me. But I don't necessarily uh, write with the intent of putting things in there that are new and
Trendy.
popular, like and trending. Like I would not write a progression fantasy. Really, it's just not my thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
mean, I like Cradle. Cradle was awesome, but
yeah,
yeah, for me that just wouldn't fit my style. Like focusing, like yeah, my character gets stronger over time, and I try to like not OP any of my most of my characters. But
yeah,
yeah, I can't like I couldn't focus on the power level and like yeah, that's just not my thing.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, that good question though. That's because that is I do notice the trends happening, and romantasy is making a big splash right now with what was it, Fourth Wing and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
I'm just like, nah, I don't care if I trend. I just want to write fun books, and if people read them, I'm
yeah.
good. Yeah.
Well, and that's been like one of my big things is like I don't really write anything like I just because most of these ideas now this book has had a lot of different things than I had initially planned it because again I was working like with Nathan and he would be like oh like he'd read a chapter and be like well this would be cool like are you going in this direction and maybe I wasn't going in that direction but I'm like that does make sense that I could so in that aspect but like I have most of these books kind of like the main plot and the main characters and stuff already plotted out in my head for the next several books because so I got this book and then the next book that I'll be writing is going to be the ending of the Unbreakable trilogy. That's going to be the final book and then from there I'm going to jump to urban fantasy like same world cameo characters same thing but we're just going to come into modern day
Hmm.
after that but yeah like I already have the next 6 books in my head. I just need to have them written down. But yeah, as far as like diversity and stuff and characters, it's like I don't ever really think about it. It just happens, especially
Yeah,
because you
exactly.
know because the way my world, even though like the first book has kind of a you know I don't know, first 2 chapters is basically telling you how everything got set up with the vampires, right? Well, it just made sense for Dracula to set up his world where he wants to have fingers in all 4 corners of the globe. Well,
Hmm.
how do you do that? Well, you set up a leadership in those parts of the world. Well, lo and behold, well, now you have a Polynesian general, you have an
Exactly.
Egyptian, African general, you have an Asian general, and then you have a Northern European general. That's just the natural diversity that came up in my
Yeah.
book. I don't, like I said, I don't think about like there are certain authors who, as you're reading a book, you can tell that they did it on purpose. They're just
Hmm.
like, I have to get this type of person in my book, or I'll look
Yeah.
bad, or I
Hmm.
have to, neurodivergent person or whatever. For me, like I don't think about that stuff. I'm pretty nice to everybody in the world. Like unless you're an
Hmm.
asshole to me first,
Yeah.
I was raised to give respect and then you should receive the respect. And if you don't receive it back, well, then you can start doing other things, getting away from people or whatever.
Mhm.
But I just I find there's just naturally a place for all different types of characters, and plus I love history and I love folklore from all parts of the world. So heavy Native American influences go through
Yeah.
most all of my books, because I love that culture. Um, so yeah, it's weird. You might have some people look at my books and be like, "Man, there's so much diversity in this book," and I'm like, didn't do it on purpose. Like it
Yeah.
kind of did it on purpose, but not. It's more of a just this is the way the story had to be. You know,
Yeah.
so and like I was thinking about this after I read the Green Bone Saga.
Mhm.
I'm like, it's good to have diversity within fantasy as a whole,
Yeah,
books of diversity,
I
but I don't
agree.
but like Greenbone Saga, not a single, every single character in there is Japanese, Chinese, inspired person. There ain't a single person of color or a single, white person, European. And guess what? It's amazing. It's great.
Yeah.
Like, so whenever they do an adaptation, which I'm sure they will, I really hope that they don't put any white people in there. I really hope that it's just the same way it was in the book. I don't need to be represented in that story. That
Yeah,
wasn't. That's
I
not our
agree.
story. And it's great. It's one of the probably. I think I had it in my top 10 series of all time.
Yeah,
Once I
Greenbone Saga is great. I haven't read Jade Shards yet, but that's the only one I
yeah,
haven't read. So
me either. Yep, I haven't
I
read
read
the
the
novella.
Pedro Moon. Yeah, yeah, it's a great series, and yeah, it doesn't need white people. It
It
really
does.
doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, but like yeah, I think everybody should have a like this is the way I always put it. Everybody should have a seat at the table, you know, and you don't everyone doesn't have to be in everybody's meal, but everybody should have a seat at the table. That's kind of how I feel about it. Like Fond du Lai's great. I mean, I know you had your problems with Rage of Dragons. Like,
yeah.
that's a more of the African inspired one, but
and
yeah.
and I, and I, and I'm all for that. I was really down to read an African inspired uh setting, but yeah, the story just did not work for me.
Yeah,
The
I was
characters and
I
everything,
was more on your side than everybody because it was like that book. It's weird because that book is popular. It's not like top tier popular,
yeah.
but it's pretty popular book. And especially when I got on BookTube, it was before I really started everything. That was all the rage. Right, was Rage
Oh
of
yeah,
Dragons everywhere. So
especially with Daniel Green. Daniel Green
oh,
heavily promoted
he's
that
like
book.
he thought that was the one of the best books he's ever. And then like I kind of ended up being like you. Once I got in it, I was like, there were some cool parts for sure,
Hmm.
but there was a lot of rage in the book. There was not a single dragon in that book. It was very marketing, very very smart marketing there, Mr. Evan there. Um, but yeah, there was. And what was the word that they used? Oh, or the phrase that they used? Oh, like was it commoner or was it? He kept
Oh
using the same word over and over again, talking about the non-nobility or the non-higher ups,
yeah,
like the normal people. He
something
used
like
a word
that.
for them,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
and I forget what the word was. It might have been commoner, but like we could have made a drinking game out of it. I'm like, holy moly, I'd be drunk. I'd be drunk by the end of every chapter. He said it so much.
Right. Yeah. Who's going under the table first reading this book?
But I get the appeal of the book. It kind of, and it's weird because I don't know if you've ever had this, like if you in the world, like if you start working for a company, then you start seeing those companies' trucks everywhere, or if you get a certain vehicle, well, now you see that vehicle all over the road that you've never
Yeah.
seen before. Well, it was kind of like uh, the first time I read like a book that had to do with some kind of tournament. Then all of a sudden, I'm reading all these books with tournaments in them. And I'm
Right.
like, where did this come? How did this just sink into the ether of my reading? It's like I've never noticed it before, but then like over the course of a couple months, I read like 6 books that had like tournaments, like the Cyborg Tinker, the Rage of Dragons, the Savior's Champion. There's like a whole bunch of other ones. And that's another thing I've noticed with a lot of these romantasy books. There's a lot of tournament stuff going on in these books. Like I don't know if like women like that. Women like that. We want our men to fight for us. Like I know.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. It is interesting, and I feel like I'm pretty sure Rage of Dragons is published by Orbit. I feel like Orbit is a little bit more lenient on what um on what they're willing to publish. If I'm being honest, that's just my personal opinion, but it seems like they don't like have really strict guidelines as far as editing goes, and you know, story progression and plot and stuff like that. And I feel like somebody at Orbit is just like going, oh yeah, that's pretty good, I guess we'll let it slide.
They don't gatekeep as hard as maybe Penguin or one of the other places. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what? I've never thought about that. Maybe that's an interesting. Maybe that could be a good video to start like going through who publishes what and be like, is there a similarity or is there a style that these publishers like to do? Like, yeah, maybe one
Yeah.
is more laxed in what they, you know, the serious progression or editing. That's a good thought, Chaz.
Yeah, I just feel like stuff I've seen from Harper Voyager and Penguin, Random House, stuff like that is just a lot more cohesive and put together. So I've just kind of wondered about that. But uh, now tell me, Jr., how is your wife's sense of humor? How, because you can see JCM's comment here, like how's your wife's sense of humor?
All right, where? All right, what do we got going on here? Because I'm just getting.
It's right there, 5 comments up from the bottom.
Ah,
There's a little rumor here.
oh, Joe slept with Jim's publicist.
Yeah. I wasn't sure whether to put that up, so I'll just put it up quick and let it go.
Yeah. My wife would have been like, yeah, of course he did. Yeah,
Oh man.
yeah, that's that's the type of joke my wife would be like, yeah, to get him on here. Like, what are you doing?
I always feel guilty as I quite enjoyed the show till I read the book and was like, oh, this is why everyone is mad.
Hmm.
Is that
Is that a reference to Dresden Files?
maybe? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, and I seen Burns comment over here. Yeah, tournaments are a staple of MAGA. Yeah, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I grew up. You wouldn't find a bigger DBZ Dragon Ball fan than me back in the day. That was me and Nathan's whole like. As soon as we got off of school, we were like sitting in front of the TV waiting for DBZ to come on and Goku to take 2 weeks to travel across the planet, which you can do in like an instant. But yeah, I love tournaments too. I mean, heck, who doesn't like Bloodsport? It's the
Oh
best.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Nicole says $4.99 to $6.99 for ebooks is standard now. Interesting. Yeah, apparently I
Yeah,
need to look into it more. I still feel like for me though, I would probably keep it around $3.99. Honestly, for me
yeah. I think
personally.
for like indie people, they want you to keep it at least 2.99 to get like 35% or 60% or whatever it is. But yeah, I just feel like have it like 3.99 is good. Just a little bit above that, just to not I'm not putting it at bare minimum, but like yeah, $4. $4 should
Mhm.
be good. I mean, inflation goes up, but I'm still getting paid the same for my ebooks
Mhm.
as I ever was. So, you know, $3.99 is good for me. You know, get it out to more people.
Exactly. Yeah, same here. I feel like if George R. R. Martin brought out his new book and charged 19.99, we'd be daft enough to pay. You know, you're
Oh,
not wrong
100%.
there. Yeah, that with George R. R. Martin and with George, I'll probably buy the physical copy.
Oh yeah, you got to.
But
I
yeah,
thought,
no, for people who only like to read on ebook, yeah, I could see for George R. R. Martin, he's probably, I mean, he's easily in my top 5 authors of all time. So I would, I would probably buy his ebook for $20
well,
if I was going to buy the ebook for sure. Same with Neil Gaiman, but I buy all of his physical as well.
well, I think it's also a little bit different because it wouldn't be necessarily. I don't think it would necessarily be because it's George. Like if George came out with a book, just not a Song and Ice and Fire book, just a book.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure that people or the vast majority of people would be willing to go 19.99 on
Oh,
an ebook,
exactly.
but I think it's because it's the next book in the Song of Ice and Fire that people would be like, "Yes, give me
Yeah.
this now." I bet there are people who would buy the hardcover and the ebook because you get the ebook immediately, so they can start reading it right off the
Right.
bat.
Exactly.
There are going to be so many people that want to be like the first person into the book that they would just buy the ebook just to start reading it before everybody.
Yep.
You
Same.
know. But yeah, I think that's a case of a specific book that everybody like I don't think Jim would allow this to happen, but like if it was like the 25th, the final book in the post-apocalyptic trilogy, like if the publisher was like $20 for the ebook, this is the very last Dresden book that's ever going to be made, people would buy it,
Oh
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But like,
Totally.
I don't think Jim would allow that. But like, yeah, people were like, if that was your only way to get to it, yeah, like the final book, okay, yeah, we're buying it.
Yeah. Yep. I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, and yeah, for Song of Ice and Fire for sure, but anything else, yeah, I don't. In fact, I know that if George R. R. Martin ever releases a new book that is not in the world of Ice and Fire, fans are going to be pissed. They're going to be like if he really, because he's got a second book in the Fire and Blood planned, like at some point down the road. If he releases that, fans will be like, okay, we want to win the winner, but this is fine. This is good. This will give us something else to read in that world. But if it's anything outside of Song of Ice and Fire, they are gonna be pissed.
Oh
I
yeah.
know I would be. No, George, you can't, don't do this to me. I want Win the Winner.
It's so funny. Like I go back and forth on how I think like this whole thing is going to go down with George. Like, will it ever be done? Is it already done? And he's just trolling us, and he's going to wait to pass away, and then everyone's going to be mad at him for like a day, and be like, "Oh, he never did it," and then like his publisher's are gonna do the whole Sanderson thing and be like, "We don't have Wins a Winner. We have Wins a Winner, and we have this."
Yeah,
He actually wrote the whole thing, and and that in a way that would be the cooler send off, right? But
yeah,
like
it
he
would be.
passes away, and then he's like, "No, guys, I got you. That would be." I don't think that's how it's going to go. I do think
Yeah,
he will get the next book. I think he'll get the next book out, but then I think somebody's going to have to finish the final book, and I
yeah,
don't think that. And just the way he talks about his writing, I really hope he's got the ending of the whole thing written out because I don't think he's going to get much of the next one done. Like
yeah.
he's got
Well,
so much other stuff he's doing.
he
Somebody's going
does
to have to
know the
step in
ending. I
and
know that much because he told the showrunners the ending for Game of Thrones. Like whether or not they used the ending that he gave them, I don't know. But he said he did tell them like how he wants it to end. So I don't know. We can take that for what it's worth, but yeah, I don't know if he'll finish the final book or not. I'm with you there, but I'm along for the ride. You know.
Yeah, it was worth it. Like
Mhm.
like I said, like I read them last year, right? And so what we're going into 14 years now, but
Mhm.
like it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I like the show. Everybody talks about how great the books are. I'll give it a shot, you know, and they were just amazing. Like
Yeah.
they're I can see why people are so mad. They're just like, this is so good. Why are you not giving us like? Why are you taking so long?
Yeah. I did read one of his most recent blog posts where he said that he plans to have Winds of Winter out, or at least plans to have it finished before A Night of the Seven Kingdoms airs, because he's got, because they HBO is doing A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and Night of the Seven Kingdoms just started pre-production. So
Ooh.
he said he plans to have it done by the time that show airs. So I'm hopeful.
Well, what when then also you got to think about editing. Maybe he'll be like, I passed it off to the editor, you
Right,
know.
exactly.
But
That's what I'm thinking.
but he said his book right now, what his book is planned to be like 1,400 pages or something like that, or he has 1,400 pages
Yeah,
written or something crazy like
yeah,
that. So who knows
something.
how much editing is going to have to go into that?
Yeah.
But I'm definitely down for it. Like I didn't feel bad once I finished it, like where it's at now. I didn't
Hmm.
feel bad like, oh man, I'm never gonna like. I was like, it's freaking sweet, and
Hmm.
somebody's gonna finish it. Then that's the thing.
Right.
There's no way that the publisher is not going to allow this to be finished. Like like I said, I am now in the camp of he's gonna get the next book out before he dies, but
Hmm.
somebody's gonna have to finish the last one. My thought is probably like a Joe Abercrombie. I don't know if Joe Abercrombie is a fan of Song of Ice and Fire, and I think that's a prerequisite. Like like with
Yeah.
Wheel of Time, like Sanderson was an amazing fan of
Yeah.
the series. I think that's what you need to be. You can't just have someone who's just a good writer or someone who's just a fan. I think they have to be both. You know?
Yeah, I agree. I don't I personally don't think I would want Joe Abercrombie to do it. Don't get me wrong, I like Abercrombie, but I don't think his writing style really fits with Martin. I feel like, and granted, I've only read one book in his series so far, but I feel like Scott Baker is a better complement to George R. R. Martin a uh, in terms of the ability to write epic dark fantasy. Um,
Yeah, I've
uh,
heard them compared a lot.
yeah, R. Scott Baker. I've only read the first book, and it was really dense, but it was very dark. It was definitely grim dark. I feel, and so I think he could easily write on the level of George R. R. Martin. And yeah, I don't think. I mean, maybe Abercrombie could, but I just don't know. Um, Even though he's considered grimdark, it's almost more of a lighthearted grimdark almost. I don't know
Yeah,
if that
there's
makes
a
sense.
lot of dark joking
Yes,
yeah,
yeah, lots of
funny-ish.
dark humor.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely see that. But yeah, you'd have to have somebody who is really because this is one thing I think George is better than anybody at, and that is handling multi POV.
Oh wow, yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
You know,
he is like, yeah, he's definitely the study for people who want to write multiple POVs. Yeah, that guy can do it for sure.
yeah, like, and that was like because like I read Song of Ice and Fire after I had been through Malzahn twice, and I'm just thinking like there's so many characters in
Mhm.
Malazan that it's like hard to like keep track of where you're at sometimes. Like you're like, oh, you just okay, we're bounced over here. Okay, so now we're like 500 miles away. Different cast of character. Like this character was doing this now, and sometimes it felt really jumbled. But like George, it's seamless. Like
Mhm.
you, every time he changes the character, you know exactly where you're at. And I don't know, maybe it's just because his writing's so impactful. Like
Yeah.
as soon as you jump back to another character, you know exactly what that character was doing 400 pages ago. Like you're
Yeah.
like, okay, we're picking right back up where like, and I don't know if it's like he's just able to make things exciting, or like, or he leaves off at a critical moment, like with the character, where it's like
Yeah.
you were waiting to come back to that character. So maybe that's why he's so good at multi POVs, because he always leaves you at a spot where you're wanting more. And then when
Exactly.
you do jump back, your brain immediately says, "Okay, we're back here, and she's about to kill this person," or
Yeah, I definitely think that's a lot of why he does it so well. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. And I don't know if you have any theories like after reading A Dance with Dragons of where things are going. I have one that I'm really stuck on, and I won't I hesitate to say anything like super spoilery, but I'll just say that I think the show was very lacking in a focus on the skinwalking aspect of Game of Thrones, like like warging, being able to, you know, transfer your consciousness into
oh
like
yeah.
the animals and stuff. And that last scene with Jon Snow at the end of A Dance with Dragons, I think that's what's happening. That's my theory, and it's
Yeah,
definitely different than what the show did. But I think he makes that last comment, and I think that's what's happening. If you know what I'm referring to.
yeah, I definitely think, like, even in the books, the magic is not the heaviest thing, but
Yeah,
they've done they blunted the magic even more
they
in the
did.
TV show.
Yeah, that was one of the things that really disappointed me was there were so many cool directions that they could have done in the show, and it just yeah, they just kind of left it out. And I get in a sense they want to make it palatable for a lot of different audiences, but I mean, skinwalking's not that unpalatable, right? It's not,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and
and the
also,
whole
like,
green dreams and stuff.
yeah, my favorite thing from the show was the Faceless Men. Like,
Oh yeah.
I
Oh
thought
yeah.
that was I felt like we should have gotten more of that, and
Yeah.
that's the one thing in the books that I'm also like, I hope they're in this last two books. Like, I
Oh
really
yeah.
want more of the, like, they could do a whole show about the Faceless Men, and
They could.
I would be on board. I would be like, yeah, let's watch some freaking like skinwalker assassin type people. Like, let's do that.
Absolutely. I am totally on board for that. I have a feeling because I one thing I've noticed about George R. R. Martin is he does not write anything. Um, oh, what's the word I want? He doesn't write anything that he doesn't plan to use.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and
so
that's
I think if he's alluded to stuff with the faceless men, I think we're going to get more of that for sure. I would
yeah.
be
Well,
shocked if we didn't.
yeah, and well, that's the one thing is so funny. I would like, because the way I do, and I may switch this up a little bit, but the way I've always worked with my beta readers is like I'll give them like 6 chapters at
Mhm.
a time, and it's so fun to like see them like critique and talk about a section, and them talk about like the future and about like, oh, I like this, and but we're they're like, I don't know what's going on with it. You should probably, and I love it when they're like, yeah, you should probably do something with that. And I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, we'll just wait till another 5 chapters and you'll see. Because like, yeah, if something seems off when you're reading, or it seems like, well, this he made a point to say this. it's probably going to get used. Like
Mhm.
I very strictly use the Chekhov's gun. It's like if you see it, it's gonna go off at some point. That's why I always tell them it's like everything has a purpose.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I totally agree. I'm looking forward to it. I'm planning on doing a video here soon about unresolved plot threads in A Song of Ice and Fire, and yeah, that'll because I have a lot. I have a
I was gonna
list
say
of
that'll probably be a big video.
yeah. So, but most of those plot threads weren't even touched on in the show.
Oh yeah, there
Yeah,
was so
like
much more.
Lady Stoneheart, for instance. Nothing.
Yeah, yeah. That well, and that's the thing. All the books are really. I mean, I think A Feast for Crows might have been the smallest book, but it's
Yeah,
still really 800-page book or
yeah,
something like that.
easily. Yeah,
Yeah. So there is just so much, so much that they couldn't fit in. Now, I actually feel like they should have done 10 seasons. That's just,
I do too.
you know,
Yeah. Well, in
that's
fact,
just
George R. R. Martin wanted them to do more seasons. Yeah, but
yeah.
they were just like, oh yeah, we're tired of doing that, or the showrunners
Because
were tired.
weren't they supposed to do like Star Wars or like the showrunners
Yeah,
were,
something like
they,
that. And
they
they're
got
like,
another,
oh, we're moving on. We're tired of doing this.
yeah.
Like,
And I'm just like, well, if that's the case, like hand it off to somebody else and let them continue
exactly.
it. But they were just like, all right, we're going to wrap it up here in one season. And it felt so rushed. And like you said, there's so much stuff
Yeah.
that they just cut out because, well, and they didn't even do a full season. They only did 8 episodes, I think, right? So I'm
Six.
like,
Yeah,
yeah.
six
So I'm like,
episodes.
so not only are you cutting, you were supposed to do at least one more season, you cut out a season, then you cut down the amount of, episodes. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
of course it felt rushed.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel like, we got handed the raw deal with that. But I'm excited to see how George ends it if we get his ending. I have a feeling that the person who ends up on the throne, I have a feeling that probably is George's ending, but maybe not. I'm willing to be surprised.
Yeah,
But I don't know. But hey, we've got House of the Dragon now.
and I am like, that's the one thing I was so surprised at is that you could go from like people just loved Game of Thrones until the last season, right?
Yeah.
And then that last season left so people with such a bad taste in their mouth. But then like House of the Dragon picked up peak Game of Thrones. Like
Mhm.
it was right back like you were in season 3. Like it's
Yeah.
just like I was like, how did they like? I don't know if it's the original showrunners or a whole new group of people, but man, they made it. They made it like hit the ground running. And I was like,
They
I was
did.
blown away. I was not expecting to like it as much as I did.
Yeah. I think it was is it Miguel Sapochnik was one of the main showrunners, and he did some of the he did a lot of the fight scenes and choreography in some of the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones that made it so good. He was the main showrunner for season 1, and I think for part of season 2 as well. I think he's left the project now, but yeah, I think that's the reason it's so good. We have someone quality that actually cares about
Yeah,
um yeah, yeah, cares about the material. And
yeah. I think that's the most important thing is that if you're a part of a project that big, I think you have to be a fan. You just have
yeah.
to, or the fans are gonna see right through you and just be like, I think that's what happened with the oh my gosh, the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power.
Hmm.
It was the one of the most beautiful like things I've ever seen. You can tell. Would they spend like $200 million on this show? You can
Yeah.
tell, like the graphics, like
Oh,
the sets, the costumes were just never seen anything like it. but the
Yeah.
story just suffered so bad. And I'm just like, well, money can only get you so far. You got to have people who actually care about the source material.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. I'm really enjoying it so far. I watched the first episode of season 2 yesterday. Loved it. So I'm excited for
Yeah.
the new episode releasing tonight. Yeah, that's going to be great. And the nice thing is too that I've seen some videos where people have been talking about, oh man, but they changed this and everything from Fire and Blood. The thing about Fire and Blood is it's written by a maester. It's a history book, so there's maybe some things that the maester didn't get right. So you can have certain twists in the show that you maybe didn't get in the book because maybe the maester is an unreliable narrator. You kind of don't know exactly what happened or what all the filler was. And they're not making a bunch of major changes, but there's a
Yeah.
few things that they did different that I'm like, it's a history book, so who knows?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I haven't read the book yet, so I'm not sure how closely they're keeping it to it, but I
They've
mean, I'm
they've
loving
done
it right now.
they've done a pretty damn good job, I think. And the show, you really only need to I mean, you could skip the first half of the book. I don't suggest you do that, but you could skip it because this particular series picks up about halfway through Fire and Blood.
Oh, okay.
So, but I don't recommend you skip it because the entire thing is really good. And it doesn't feel like you're writing a history book. That's another great thing about George R. R. Martin. It just, you're reading it and it feels epic, and you're learning about all these family lines of the Targaryens and stuff like that, but it's not boring. Like
Yeah.
most of the time, like growing up and stuff, history was so boring to me, especially American history. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but I am so bored by American history. But this book was magnificent.
Yeah,
So
I'm the opposite. I'm like Mr. History anything. I love I love learning about. Now it's weird though because like World War II is cool, but like I'm not as into World War II as it seems like. I'm more of ancient history type person.
ancient history, especially European history, I am all over, man. Egypt, Mesopotamia, yeah, I'm totally on board with all of that. It's just American history that bores the snot out of me.
Yeah.
I just I could care less. I shouldn't say that because I mean it took all that happening to get us where we are today, but still I'm just kind of like, okay, can I get the Cliff Notes version? Just
Yeah, I think
history for dummies.
the major ones are okay. Like the Revolutionary War is pretty cool,
Yeah.
but then like after that, like how much do you really know about the French Indian War? The War of
Yeah.
1812. The Civil War. There's some cool parts about it here and there. Like I think if you live on the East Coast, I'm sure everybody has been to one of the parts. Gettysburg or something like that. But yeah, like after that, it's like, yeah, American history, it's okay. It's nothing as cool as reading about Rome and Carthage. It's not like,
Oh man, I know. Yeah. Same here. That's how I feel too. We had one more comment from JCM here. DBZ was a huge influence for me. That's cool. I still need to read his books. I have not read um I have not read any of his books yet. I need to get on that.
yeah, Wistful Ascending is a good one. After I read it, I did a like a short video about like what type of books I think would be good for beginners of that genre,
Mm-hmm.
or new adults coming into a genre. And I really think like Wistful Ascending is a good book for like if you're going from like Harry Potter, but you're wanting to step it up a little bit and you're wanting to go into like a little bit of sci-fi. Wistful Ascending is great for that because he doesn't have a lot of like foul language and gore and stuff like that, but is a very cool story. There's, space bears. Everybody who's ever read it talks
Hmm.
about the space bears. But yeah, like, and over the last few years, I've gotten really into like space operas,
Yeah.
and it's not, I wouldn't, I don't think, it would be like considered a space opera, but there's similarities, and I really kind of like that, easier to get into, like way different than like Hyperion or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a different level of you know concentrate. I feel like Hyperion is like the Malazan of sci-fi. Like, although I really, I mean, I did like Gardens of the Moon, but I really liked Hyperion. Hyperion to me had some of the highest highs I've ever read.
Oh
But then
yeah,
there's
Hyperion is
really,
amazing.
but then there were also some like lulls in it where I'm just like, why did we leave one person to go to this other person right then? But
Hmm.
yeah, overall, I loved Hyperion.
Yeah,
And
it's my second favorite sci-fi of all time, just under Dune.
under Dune.
So
Yeah, that's what I've heard a lot of people. It's like it's Dune and Hyperion. Yeah, Hyperion. I need to get to the other books. I need to get to the other books on Dune too.
yeah,
Um,
I same here. The only book I have left for Hyperion is Rise of Endymion, and then Dune I still have to read the other four books in the sextet. Um, so I haven't. Yeah, I need to read those, and I'm hoping to knock out at least two more Dune books this year, but we'll see. Um,
yeah. I've heard, I've heard people say, like, I don't know necessarily about the drop off, but I've heard that like after book two in Hyperion, like the way it's written changes or something. Like
a
I was
little
just
bit.
watching a video. I was watching a video yesterday about that, and they happened to mention Hyperion. They're like, it changes the way that it's written or something like that. But
It does a little bit, yes, and it's more and it's set in the far future after the events of the first two books. So
okay,
there's definitely a gap in time there. So I liked Endymion though. I thought it was a great book. It wasn't on the level of Hyperion good, but it was still really good, I thought. So after reading this series enough to make to read pretty much everything Dan Simmons has written. So like even some of his horror stuff, like I'm like, okay, I need to read his horror. I need to read he's got some like Greek myth retellings, I think like Ilium. Um yeah, so I'm on board. I want to read more of this stuff for sure. Um, Nicole says I'm fascinated with the American Revolutionary War the most, and hubby is into World War One and Two.
yeah, World War One to me is one of the like they call it the Forgotten War, but it is freaking, oh man, trench warfare. That is about as bad as it gets.
Yeah. Epic Tales is here. What's up, man?
Uh, well, I got a couple more minutes, and then I think
Yeah,
it's
I was gonna say we've gone a little over 2 hours here, and I know I don't want to take away from your family time, but JR, I really appreciate you being on the channel today. This has been awesome,
yeah, man.
and
Yeah, it was 2 hours
there
just flew by.
it did. It flew by. And is there anything that you want to plug? Anything coming up that you're excited for? This is your chance to plug what you've got coming up. You kind of talked about your upcoming book already, but talk
Yeah,
about that as well if you want.
I actually think um, I want to make sure, but I think book two, More Than a God War, I think it's free right now
Oh,
on ebook. So if you haven't read the books, this is a great time. You can buy book one, buy More Than a Vampire, and then basically two for one it.
wow.
So I think it's got another day or two because I think I set it for a 5 day free or whatever a couple of days ago. So go check that out. As I said, my short
Hmm.
story collection. You can read. I have a story about Hermes that's in it on my Discord. So you can jump over there and read it under exclusive content. And that'll kind of give you a gauge of what you're going to see in the short story collections. The story is called Sending a Message. So you're going to get to see what Hermes actually does for Zeus. He's not just a guy who hands off paperwork. But yeah, there's that. And again, I'm doing a little bit of updates on book 5, and hopefully we'll have that out soon. And check out the channel, all that good stuff. Trying to catch up on my reading. Wife's doing a lot better, so I'll start kicking that up once I finish. Like I said, I got 3 more chapters, and then in August I'm going to be doing a readathon, an indie readathon. So we'll have Talendor's guest up there, and I'll be if you guys have some other great indie people that I haven't heard of, send them my way, and maybe I can throw them on the TBR for August.
Chad Nicholas, dude.
Oh, I like that cover.
Yeah, Chad Nicholas. This is a slasher novel, but he writes a lot of psychological horror and stuff like that. Good stuff, man. This is definitely one to read.
Yeah, I love that, man. A slasher book. Okay. Yeah. All right.
I have all of his books in hardcover. He's that good. Ooh. Yeah. I highly recommend him. He's got 3 out right now.
Yeah, send me that in Discord.
I will. Then,
yeah. Like I said, I think we're trying to do five indie books in August. So for a long time I was trying to do at least 1 indie book a month. So yeah, I'm down for a slasher book.
Cool. Yeah, well, I'll definitely send it to you. Oh, and yeah, Nicole's got Obsidian Murders by Nicole Brona. That's her. That's hers. So self promo always allowed. That's awesome.
Make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Great hangout. Thank you very much. Yeah. Really happy to have you on the channel, JR. As always, guys, links are in the description below. And until next time, read more books.